Good evening, everybody, and welcome. My name is Elena, and I run events here at the Strand. Before we launch into a discussion of Reggie Watts' new memoir, Great Falls and Feet, I'd like to share a little bit of history about the Strand. The Strand was founded in 1927 by Benjamin Bass on 4th Avenue's Book Row. Stretching from Union Square to Astor Place, Book Row gradually dwindled from 48 bookstores, until after 96 years, the Strand is a sole survivor, now run by third-generation owner Nancy Bass-Wyden. We want to thank all of you for your support. Without our low community of book lovers and writers, such as Reggie and Phoebe, we wouldn't be here today. Today we're thrilled to have Reggie Watts with us for the release of his new memoir, Great Falls and Feet, Fast Times, Post-Punk Weirdos, and a Tale of Coming Home Again. Reggie Watts is an internationally renowned musician, comedian, and writer who starred as the band leader on CBS's The Late Late Show with James Corden and IFC's comedy Bang Bang. Using nothing but his voice, his looping pedals, and his vast imagination, Watts blurs the lines between music and comedy with a resume that includes multiple specials and appearances across platforms such as Comedy Central and Netflix. Joining Reggie in conversation is Phoebe Robinson. Phoebe is a stand-up comedian, best-selling author, producer, actress, and publisher. She's the author of the essay collections You Can't Touch My Hair, Everything's Trash But It's Okay, and Please Don't Sit on My Bed in Your Outside Clothes. And in 2020, she launched her own imprint, Tiny Reparations Books. Robinson is also the co-creator and co-star of the podcast Two Dope Queens and HBO series of the same name. Most recently, she received the Variety's Comedy Innovator Award for her work and continued contribution in comedy. So, without further ado, please join me in welcoming Reggie and Phoebe to the stage.
That was scary.
I know.
Feared for my life.
You alright?
Yeah, I'm okay. Are you okay?
Wish I had a mic on. Here's one.
Yeah, you're sitting behind me.
Caroline.
Hi, Strand. How's everyone doing? That's as rowdy as we're going to get on a Monday night with the book crowd. Thank you guys for showing up. I'm so excited. Reggie, hi.
Hi.
This is such a thrill. I've told you this a million times, but I'm just such a fan of Reggie's. And like when he lived in New York and I was starting out doing stand-up, like I would, go to like all his shows and he would just fucking crush it and be so funny. And I was like, oh, maybe one day I'll be like on a show with Reggie. Like I was like, that's like a reasonable dream. And then like I'm publishing your book, which it is so fucking good, this book. We're gonna get into it, but it just feels like a full circle moment. It feels like a cool manifestation. So thank you for trusting me with your book, baby.
Oh, it's my pleasure. You're the perfect person to do this with. So.
Oh, thank you. Well, there's so much I want to talk to you about because you kind of are you're so singular. Your career is so special and fantastic, and this book is so amazing. And one of the things that I love about it is because, I think like most people, like we know like the funny side, the sort of like you go off on your riffs, the musicality, but there's such a level of introspection and vulnerability in this book that is incredible, not only as an artist, but as a man, and how I think sometimes society is not encouragement to be introspective about the good things that happen in their lives and the not so good things that happen in their lives. So I first of all want to know, what was the process like writing this book, and did you have to resist sort of defaulting to the Reggie that we know when you're trying to tell us a Reggie that we don't know?
Yeah, I mean, no, I approached it as like filling out a timeline of my life. I just kind of started at the beginning and tried to remember as much as I could, and it was, and then once I got kind of broad strokes, that I started remembering, micro moments, and then talking to people, neighbors that I grew up with and friends and so forth. They would remind me of things that happened. So I kind of I had this like dream project of being able to, whenever I remembered something, I could just enter it into a program and it would store it. And now that we have access to amazing artificial intelligence, like eventually like I can just keep dumping stuff, and it would just fill out a timeline for me and just show me. I just think it's fascinating to be able to have a record of all the things that we've done. Even people that are like, might be like, what? You know, it's like, I don't have that flashy of a life. Whatever. If you actually went back and could look at all the things that you've done, everybody's life is insane. But so I wanted an opportunity to be able to do that. So in a way, it's kind of selfish. It's like, oh, now I have a timeline. You know, it's like I'm like a pregnant. No, but but you know, so I have. So that's kind of what this is. And then the other thing is just like it was served as a way of I don't know, paying respect to the things that have happened in my life and the people who were a part of my life, and to have a document of that so that I can remember the elements that have all come together to make me who I am. And so the process was relatively easy, but like, you know, easy enough in that I didn't have to invent stuff, I just had to remember stuff.
Yeah. No, I mean, I think that's one of the fascinating things that I love about this book is like, we see, because I think all of us, we just forget like how we created ourselves, and we're just like, I'm here and these are the things that I like and these are my friends and these are like the places I go to, and like you really take us into how like you figured out how to make friends and how to make people laugh, and that beatboxing was a way for you to connect with Black kids. And so what I love about this book is that we get to see your process of you piecing yourself together, which I think is like so fascinating. So like, what was like one of the most enjoyable aspects of you looking back on your younger self and being like, oh my God, young Reggie did this, and like how cute was that I did that? There are so many moments for me, but I'm curious.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, remembering some of these things that are in the book, you know, brought me into these sense memories of like replaying these moments that, I don't know, it's sometimes I feel like I'm observing something that happened to someone else in many ways, sometimes. And so the books at times felt like I was just trying to, I was seeing someone else's life, and that I knew intimately somehow, and that I was trying to bring that, you know, forth. So that was trippy, kind of dissociative, but but in those memories, sometimes I'd be right there back in that place, like in Cleveland, Ohio, on the doorsteps of my grandma's house or whatever, and like seeing the kids playing in the neighborhood and hearing that sound of like, you know, the humidity in the air and fireflies and kids running around, and some kid on a bike and people with parents yelling at kids. You know, like I would have those, or in France with my relatives. And so I tried to bring about, my goal was to try to make it as lucid as possible, like to try to describe it in a way that makes you feel like you're there, which is like never done in books ever. And so I want to be one of the first to do that. But yeah, but for real, like I wanted that because I wanted people to understand, like, okay, well, these are the elements, you know, like I said, that came to make me who I am.
Yeah, can we talk a little bit about you before you moved to Great Falls? And you were like the cutest kid. Like I was reading this book being like, okay, this is like the cutest kid who's like ever existed. You're just like speaking French and like doing all these things. So can you talk a little bit about like your childhood before you got to Great Falls and how that sort of influenced you? Because in the book you sort of wrote about how like sometimes like you doing these like characters or speaking French, like it created like a wall and you sort of connecting with people here stateside. But I'm imagining like overseas, like that was just, it was so easy and that was like a part of it.
Yeah, I mean, I think music was a big part of it. My parents loved music, so for me, I had a lot of, I would make immediate connection by just kind of being entertaining. You know, like it's always been entertainment. Like at some point as a kid, when my parents would have their friends over to the apartment or whatever, I would kind of entertain the guests, you know, and my parents' friends. And yeah, and I don't really remember a time where I wasn't doing that, but that's kind of like how I would connect most immediately. I just like to see people laugh and have a good time. And I think my mom had that spirit. My dad had that spirit a lot more back then, before moving to Montana. he still is a jovial, and my mom is jovial, and they like to have fun. So I think I absorbed that from my parents and kind of amplified that for them. I don't remember there being a lot of trouble back then. The trouble didn't start till Montana.
Yeah, you were you're a bit sassy as a kid.
yeah. I'm Fidel, sassy. Yeah, it's.
No, but you
Yeah.
seemed a little bit like, and I really appreciate this quality, and I wish more people had it, where there's an element of like, hey, let's maybe not take this so seriously. Like, I'm recalling it specifically, you're talking about your time when you were on the football team, and you were just sort of like, I can't care enough about this for this to be my life. And I think, you know, certainly as someone who's from the Midwest, it's like football is life. Like, I love football, like watching it.
Yeah.
Like, I yell at the TV, like it's just like so intense. But what I appreciate is that growing up, you just had a sort of like, well, I know this is why we're all doing this, but do we have to all be doing this? So I'm curious where that instinct came from to, I think, rightfully question the ways in which we assign importance to certain things and how that can take joy away from your life by doing that.
Yeah, I think it's just because it might have been Monty Python that pushed me over the edge. Because this is part of the answer to your question, but it's when I saw Monty Python and the Holy Grail, I didn't know what Monty Python was. I was really young, and they were doing a marathon on NPR, or not NPR, but PBS. And the first scene, if you've seen it, there's just a hillside, and you hear and I was like, oh, I'm about to see some dope ass medieval shit. And then like you see like the crown of the helm like coming over, cresting the helm. I'm like, yeah, it's gonna be so awesome. I love medieval stuff. Like that sounds like so exciting. And then it was just King Arthur, like just like acting like he's on a horse, and he's like holding the reins, and he's just like trotting along. And then there's was it Terry Gilliam? Terry Gilliam's next to him with the coconuts and the gigantic, I've got an adjective backpack or whatever, like just like clopping away, doing the sounds of the horses, and I lost it. I could not stop laughing. And I think that observation, like everything is absurd. I got this absurdity bug, and so whenever I was in anything, I felt like I was in a thing, like I was in a movie. Like if I was on a school bus with a bunch of football players, I felt like I was in the scene of a guy that's in a school bus with a bunch of football players. So, and that was like most situations in my life. And I don't know if that was a coping mechanism, an escape mechanism. It just felt like it was just funny. So I could never take a situation seriously. I was just always just like, guys, isn't this funny that we're on this bus right now? Like, imagine, okay, like, what if, like, 30 years from now, what if you could, like, time travel back to this moment? Wouldn't you be like, oh, this is awesome? I was always just commenting on the reality. And so I think I don't know what it was. I think it was just, I was always interested in that. I thought things were silly. But then I would see people using absurdity, artists using absurdity, like Monty Python or The Muppet Show or whatever. And those things, I just became so giddy because I'm like, that's reality to me. That's more reality than the other stuff.
And what makes that more, to you, what makes that more reality than the other reality that is?
Yeah. I think it's because it feels like you're really noticing the moment. Like you're observing the moment, and you're kind of for me, it's like realizing how fantastic a moment is, or how absurd it is that we just all agree to be on a bus wearing these big ass pads and with our mouth guards in our hands or whatever, just like waiting to get off the bus and play this game that again everybody's deciding to play, and it's got rules, and you run around and throw a ball and people cheer for various reasons. And I just always think that it's fun to be self-aware in a moment, no matter how sometimes to the detriment of sometimes serious moments, but I've tempered that now. I don't try to belittle an actual emotional, sincere moment. But back then, I was unstoppable. I was like, this is serious. It's like, yes, I know. It's like, You don't think it's serious, do you? No, I don't. Damn it.
So we'll get back to the book, but I'm very curious about this. So, are there moments in your life where, because you're sort of like zooming out, that it's tough for you to actually be in the moment and sort of experience what's happening as opposed to automatically going to like the commentary of what's going on?
Yeah, I mean, there's definitely, I've had issues with that. But I think now it's much easier for me to kind of go like this. Well, I've always been there for like, let's say a friend was having an issue or something like that. I can turn it, I could be like, silly, and they're like, and I can be immediately connected to them and really into what's going on and really be there in that moment. That I've always had that on that level. And the more subtle kind of in between, that varied through life. Like I got better at it. Like, and this is a situation where I should be more present and natural and just allow for what's happening as opposed to, but it's always there. It's like, this is just like in the movies, when someone's having a problem and then and I bet you someone's going, someone just came into a door, got through a doorway, interrupted, there's a text, whatever. It's like I'm like watching the movie, but it is always ambiently there. But I think I'm pretty connected. I mean, but it has been an issue for sure. Yeah. But I've just kind of learned over time.
Yeah. And one of the other things I really enjoyed about this book is that you are very heavily influenced by pop culture, and so was I. And I also do that sometimes. Or like, I had like a bad dating situation happen overseas recently. Not bad like that, but just more like he turned out to be garbage. And like, in the moment, I was like so upset. But then I also zoomed out. And I was like, oh, but this could go into a rom-com in the right way. Like I immediately was like, how can I process this?
Yeah.
But I love that pop culture shaped you in such a way that I feel like you're a very unique, specific person. And so I'm curious how you feel that pop culture has influenced you in your life.
Yeah, I mean, I grew up, absorbing as much as I could on the entertainment level, especially music. Like I said, my parents were very into music. But anything I saw, any television show, radio, soundbite, whatever language it was, I was always just fascinated at what it created in my mind, and then I would kind of mimic it. But in mimicking it, I was trying to understand it. So understanding it meant that maybe I could use some of it in some way, and at least in the easiest way to mimic it. So in the beginning, it was just a lot of mimicry, just because I loved it. Whether it was, I don't know, James Brown, or Cannonball Adderley or something, or Aretha Franklin, or people like that. I would look at them and I'd go like, I love the way they move, and I love the way they sound, and I love the texture of this, and I love the clothes they're wearing, and look at that background. It makes me feel so weird. What a weird color, So I would kind of log that. And the pop culture is interesting because it synergizes so many elements, and I was lucky enough to be there when I was a kid, when like the first idea of a music video. Music videos existed before that, but MTV just kind of made it a thing. It was like, this is a music video. This goes along with the vision of the song, or whatever. And when that started to happen, music and an artistic idea visually came together. It just put me. I was like, wow, that's such a great way to create a world. I guess I was always interested in worlds, and so when I fell down, like when I watched Doctor Who, back when it was like still kind of creepy. It was like Matt Baker days, or whatever, and like kind of creepy still. And they brought it back with Matt Smith, but it made me feel weird. I loved feeling like I feel kind of uncomfortable right now. What is that? Or the Star Trek scene where he's fighting the lizard guy, and the guy's like, hey. It's like ding 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 ding. Captain Kirk's like, oh, and this guy in a lizard suit going so slow. You're like, there's no fucking way that this is real. But like when I would see those things, it was just both hilarious but fascinating. No matter how like goofy something was or how intense something was, I I don't know, I was fascinated with that world, like the way it makes you feel. It's so powerful to like have an idea and express it, and then suddenly everyone's like, yeah, like to communicate that, it's like compressed information. So I was always that, yeah, I hope that answered something.
It did. No, I love it. I'm like inside your head. Like I was telling you in the green room, like one of the things that's really great about this book is that it's so vivid. Like I felt like I was right there with you, like in school, with like your friends, and I love your journey of making different kinds of friends and how like sometimes you were a little bit avoidant and then other times you like leaned into it. And yeah, can you talk a little bit about sort of like your journey and sort of like connecting with the different groups of friends? Because you had like different, and I sort of did that too in high school where I was like cool with the popular people, also cool with the jocks, and like, so I'm curious a little bit to hear about that.
Yeah, I mean, I was always interested in making friends. I love being included in things, and so it was important for me to have friends, but I was also an only child, so I protected my alone time pretty severely, so I definitely, like, hey, let's be friends, but I gotta build that Lego set. Like, oh, can I help? No, that's for me. That's for me. I gotta build these Legos on my own. But so throughout time, I had like a lot of different kinds of friends, but I was still kind of like a one-on-one type of person, which I kind of am still to this day, more one-on-one friend was. But whoever was having fun on the playground, it was like usually it was the weirdest kids or the people that were, or people that were shunned, or or like someone was like Mormon and they were embarrassed that they were Mormon, and then I was like, what is Mormon? Like, it's like, well, oh, you really want to hear about it? Whatever. And I was just interested in it. I just think it's just so, I don't know, it's fascinating to me to learn about people who may not be getting a lot of attention, but also equally, I liked making friends with the most popular people because I wanted to know what that was about. Like, what is that? And that was a lot, there's a lot of power and energy to that. So it was, I don't know, I met as many people as I could and befriended as many weird people as needed. People also befriended me too. It wasn't always just me. I'm deciding when there was a nice organic back and forth, but I was always willing, and I just would have like these good friends or best friends like every 3 years, like every 2 or 3 years. Some friends I would go and visit, I'd go to Cutbank, Montana, which is an hour and 45-minute drive, and my friend's father who owned a hobby shop and sold model railroads and stuff, and had a bowling alley. And like we would hang out, and that was for years, and he had a French mom, and our moms hung out, and we would play, and that happened for a long time, and then it just kind of stopped, and then I got my friend Robbie across the street. So yeah, I don't know, friendship was like something I needed, but I was also very much like, but I still need my time. The whole time.
Are you still like that now, where you like need to have your time?
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
For sure. Yeah, I just need time to not do anything, or like do some bullshit. Like play, Baldur's Gate for like 5 hours straight. And just be like, I'm gonna figure this out on my own. It's like, no one's telling me how to. I don't know what it is. I guess it's like reclaiming time because I am very socially active, but I do value my alone time.
Yeah, I'm the same way, where I'm like, I need to decompress. Like, being around people is exhausting. I love it, but it also just fully drains me.
Yeah.
Yeah. But I wouldn't guess that about you.
Yeah, well.
And they didn't either.
Like, yeah, I'm driving here. That's what people say to me. I'm driving here. I know. Yeah. I don't know, did we get a wave or something? Was there a wave? No, you were just thumbs up.
I was just giving us a thumb, like we're doing a good job.
Oh, you
Thank you so much.
like us?
We need the encouragement.
Good, okay.
I know we're doing well, because I'm like, I'm asking really good questions.
Yeah.
And you're giving incredible answers. I'm like, you're fucking killing it. Yeah. Okay. Oh my gosh, that's so many
Friends
questions.
what?
Friends, yes. I got so sidetracked. Okay, so I'm a romantic, and I love teenage Reggie, because he is such a romantic. It's like I'm like, am I reading myself? Like it's just the where everything is like a fantasy. You have this dream of this interaction with this pretty person, and you're like, I'm like, oh my god, and it's like the sweetest. Like look at your face now. You're just like, it's just like the sweetest, like most adorable thing. Because I think a lot of times you think about teenage boys who's like, ugh, blue balls, I need to have everything. You know what I mean? And there's so much nuance with you as a teenager. And so I'm really curious to hear sort of like your evolution of like you being romantic and like sort of what's your vibe now, like how you look at dating and relationships.
Yeah, I mean, I was very much I was a romantic for sure. I used to dream about going on not vacation, I guess adventures, with someone that I was really liking and in love with, and and I thought about it a lot. I used to fantasize it a lot, and I would always like sometimes try things but sometimes we were just too young. Like they were like, I'm not going to Italy with you. So, we don't have any money. And like they wouldn't let us travel. It's like, but maybe next year. Still not old enough. But I mean, I just always had it in my head. I was always, I'd like drop notes, and my friends like if there's like some cute girls or whatever, I would write the notes and I'd like spray it with my mom's perfume, Chanel number 5, and like fold the note and just like put it in the locker, and then like hide really far down the hallway, and then like look for them to open up the locker and find it, and like them read it and then look around or whatever, and I'm just like, oh, whatever, I'm no way, but I really enjoy. I don't know what it is. I loved it. Maybe it's because I have a French mom or something. It's French genetics. It's like you have to. It's like flowers. They do work, I guess. I don't know. Let's try them. But so I was just very fascinated with that. And of course, those like young adult or coming of age movies started to come out. And again, like it was the exact right time for old John Hughes stuff. Like I saw, what was the first one, 16 Candles, and I was like, whoa, that's wild and crazy that there's crushes and people being vulnerable, that being turned down, but then they get accepted maybe in the end. And I love those stories so much, and I wanted to live those, I want to have those, my own version of those kinds of adventures. And so the whole experience of it really informed my approach to dating. But I didn't have sex till I was 21, but I had the good fortune of having a few great, PG-13 makeup sessions, and some really amazing women, girls verging on women, friends and friendships that happened. And then like fast forwarding, like that way of thinking about a relationship didn't work. As you move, so I tried it like in 3 long-term monogamous relationships, and it doesn't. You can't have a relationship that's based on just fantasy. It just doesn't. It's a part of it, and it's a beautiful thing to have. But you have to have something more. There has to be a connection beyond that. And it seems obvious, but so now I work really hard at loving the fantasy but being conscious of the fantasy with the person as we're going through whatever it is that we're going through. And I feel like if we can check in with each other and we're like, yeah, this is fun, this is so much fun, you having fun? Yeah, I'm having fun. Not having the fun at the cost, the cost of you not knowing what I'm thinking or where I'm at. And so that was like probably the biggest difference, but I didn't learn that until about 4 years ago. And I'm 51 now. So.
No, you're not.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah.
I guess it does track.
Yeah.
Ages are ageless to me. There's some people like Prince, David Bowie. You're just ageless. I'm like, you can be any age. I wouldn't believe it.
9.
I'm having some. Can we talk a little bit about music? Because I I'm a person who has no musical skills. Or maybe I just haven't investigated. Like I don't know how to play an instrument, I can't sing, that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
And I feel like you're so musical. Music is just such a through line in your life. And the way that you move, like even like the way that you talk, you can get melodic and all those sorts of things, which is really cool and interesting. And I love when you're talking about writing about playing the violin, but you're like, yeah, I'm just like naturally good at it, but I don't really want to devote that much energy to it. I'm reading this and I'm like, you're naturally good at the violin? That's a thing that people can be? That's incredible. So yeah, can you tell us a little bit just about like your connection in music and where it comes from?
Yeah, I mean, I was exposed to a lot of great music from my parents, and I think that there must be something naturally in there. I mean, I think that when you're attracted to music, there has to be something inherent inside of you that like, I like this, but then to go further, to go like, how do you do it though? And that, so again, I started like mimicking. I kind of started mimicking playing piano on the bed when I was a little kid, or dancing around, or pretending like I'm playing drums, so I just saw a drummer on TV doing it. So it kind of started with mimicry, and then once I had an actual instrument, I was able to make music and have that, or play something and have a feedback loop, and then start studying it and learning like, oh, this is the structure of how music functions, or at least certain types of music function. That just became addictive, of course, because I was like, oh, now I can do that. Oh, I think you can do that. Oh, yeah, now you can do that. And so I just became absolutely fascinated with what was possible to do musically, because it's another language. It's an incredible language. It's like everybody speaks it. It's a very few. Even people who are deaf can feel vibrations. So I think I recognized it as a very powerful thing because I saw what it did to people. You saw like Elvis performing or whatever, and people were like losing their shit. Or him just like doing one shift of his hips, and like, what is that? Or Miles Davis like just chilling and waiting and waiting and waiting, and then just casually stepping up and hitting one note, and everybody just goes like, Jesus Christ, I mean, and then just hearing pop music and like seeing people get excited about it, and they're like, everyone's talking about, did you hear that new song? Did you go, yeah, oh, it's so social, and so I think it's an addiction that becomes an addiction, and that lent itself to other interests too, theater, acting of some sort, and dance. I was always a dancer, and never studied dance, but I was always dancing. I loved dancing. So all those things, I think there was something there in the beginning, something there, and then I had great parents, and then just good timing music-wise, because the music from the 70s, the 80s, and the 90s, that was like sick. That was like probably the pinnacle of the idea of pop music and charts and things like that before everything got hyper-fractured. So I felt like, I got to run home and book home from school just to see the Michael Jackson Thriller video, because they were playing it every 26 minutes on MTV. It's like running, it's like, gotta go. It's like, you're like waiting for the bell, and just like, get my little French backpack and just like, get home to the space helmet shaped TV and turn it on. Like, it's like, yeah, you having a good time? And it's like popcorn, I'm like, well, it's like a movie. So I mean, like, having those experiences, it just added, everything. Prince, blew me away when I saw Little Red Corvette the first time in the community center on the Air Force Base. Going in, like, all these kids play pool, again, Joan Jett playing or whatever, and then like that comes on, and I'm like, what is he? How is he? What? Those are the tallest heels. How is he doing that? What is he? What is that? Those moments just kept fueling my desire to want to be a part of that.
That was so riveting. I know, I love listening to people talk about music, because it is something where it's like I can't picture like how people, like, I know like people can put songs together, but I'm like, how does your brain operate in a way where like, oh, this is the path that I should go down, this note should go with that note. And so I'm just curious, sort of like your process when you write your songs and when you improvise on stage your music. Like we did the Dublin Festival together, and we did a show together, and you guys, it was so good. And I was like, yeah, I was just goofing around, just trying some stuff, and I was like, Reggie, that was like an incredible 20 minutes. And so I'm just curious, like, how do you make all these connections and get the humor in, show the badass, like, musical knowledge, the improv, like, it's just unlike anything else I've seen.
I mean, it's really a product of being an only child, you know. Because when you just gotta buy time, you gotta fill up the time. You know, you're spending all this time by yourself. My mom, would be working on at the base. She was a house cleaner, and so I'd come home, latchkey kid, vibes. Come home, get the key, open the door, and I was so excited to have that alone time before she came. Maybe I had to vacuum or something before she came. So I always like had the vacuum out by the stairs, and like immediately go to the TV and just be watching like, oh, this is great. Oh, BBC show, okay, cool. And then like I could see her car cruise by because it was the basement, and like you could see those window wells, So you just see the shadow of the car, and you're like terrified, and then like go plug in the vacuum and just like, like, hey mom, what's up? Yeah, but there was a lot of time on my own. I had so much time on my own, and I had a very hyperactive imagination, and so I was always doing something, building something, watching something, writing something, taking something apart, trying stuff socially at school, or I don't know, reading books, trying to cast spells on people, whatever it was. Like I was so fascinated in anything because that was my compulsion, I guess, and because I was an only child, it afforded me that extra time, and I think that's kind of where it came from. And I love being creative. So for me, when I go on stage now, it's not dissimilar to how I was in high school when I was doing humor solo. It's almost the identical thing. I started out improvising. I didn't have a looping pedal at the time, but I would do musical numbers, or I'd do impressions of Bill Cosby, who's amazing, and it was like I would just do whatever. I just knew that because I was improvising, I had to use everything I had, and then knowing that I had music skills, that was kind of like my little secret, weapon when it came to comedy. Because I could like do my comedy and it's like, this guy, what is this guy doing? Oh no, I like that beat, that's really cool. Okay, and what is he talking about again? I don't get it. Oh, I like that, that's so so it was a way of kind of balancing, maybe if I was going way outside, I could rein things back in with music. And I just like taking people on a trip. Like I want to go on trips when I'm watching whatever. And so I'm like, I want to take you on a journey of wherever it is that I'm going, we're going collectively, and so it's a weird, it's a synergy of a bunch of different things, but a lot of it's out of necessity in a way.
Yeah, and I also feel like as I was reading the book, I just feel like the sense of improv also comes from, in some ways, of just trusting yourself completely. That you're like, oh, I can sort of be in any situation and kind of figure it out and make my own way. And, certainly when I was a teenager, I was like so insecure and just like so the opposite of having any sort of trust in myself. And so I'm curious how you just had that innate sense of self so young and just really followed down that path.
I think a lot of it came from my parents. Because my parents were mixed race and different nationalities, different languages, they had to stand up for themselves, and they were pretty individualistic. And my mother was definitely a fighter, so she wouldn't take shit from anybody. She was just like, very much like, if you looked at her wrong, she'd be like, what are you looking at? Like she was pretty much like, when they say when you go to prison and like, you're supposed to like hit the biggest person to kind of like let them know that, you can't mess with me, set the tone right. Like she would do that in her, not in violent ways, but just like vibe people out or like yell at people if she thought they were treating me unfairly or my dad unfairly. And so she was very protective. It was crazy. And so I think that was a big part of it. My dad was also just lived his life the way he wanted to live his life. And so I had two pretty individualistic parents. And I think and you know, they would encourage me to, you know, stand my ground. But I mean, definitely stand up for yourself. And they encouraged me to do what I wanted to do. And so I think a lot of it came from my parents as an example. And then also I just had a hard-headedness. I always was, my dad called me wrong way Reggie. Because I would, you know, they'd be like, Reggie, come here, and I'd just run away. You know? And I always had kind of this hard-headedness about what I wanted to do. I had to do it. It was like, you shouldn't do that. I'm like, I know, but I gotta do it. Don't do that. Okay, I won't. I gotta fucking do that. You know, always wired that way. So I think that also has a lot to do with it. Where someone's like, you can't do that. I'm like, yeah, I just did it. You know, like, whatever. It didn't get me in trouble, but yeah, I think it came from that.
Yeah, and I think you have a really fascinating life because you didn't limit yourself. You're sort of like a what if person, which I think is great.
Yeah, very much. But again, you know, people are like, please don't do that. I'm like, of course. What are you doing? I'm doing that. I told you, I said yes. I remember that. But I had to. But thank you. Should I take myself to the office? Okay, I'll go to the office. All right, thank you.
So I know we have to open it up to Q&A, but I would love if you read a passage from your book. I think everyone would want to just hear how amazing it is.
Let's pick something.
Yeah.
That looks like something that's good. I guess we can do this one. This is, if you turn to your hymnal. And I'll read it like how I spoke in high school. I walked into Great Falls High. No, I walked into Great Falls High on the morning of my very first day, and my jaw dropped. Sure, I'd been in the building a couple times before to see plays at the theater and that kind of thing, and I'd always enjoyed its literally old school aura, its red brick facade, its central tower with a pavilion roof, even the classic analog wall clocks protected by metal mesh. I'd always been impressed at the size of the place, which was 10 times bigger than my junior high, and one of only 2 public high schools in the city. My freshman class alone would have more than 300 kids. But this was my first time seeing it so alive. All 3 massive floors of classrooms, lockers, labs, auditoriums, and gymnasiums, all jam-packed with over 1,300 students, jocks, preppies, nerds, popular kids, and nobodies, laughing, shouting, bumping into each other and flowing through the halls, some of them racing to get to class, some of them taking a sweet time, but all of them simply, purely, magnificently alive in this giant hormonal petri dish called high school. It was even bigger. It was bigger, even better than I had dreamt it to be. And I had dreamed of it a lot. I'd gone to see 16 Candles 2 years earlier in 1984, a matinee show at the Cine 4. Its bright green sign glowing in the strip mall on 9th Street South. Its floors covered in popcorn and crazy psychedelic carpeting. I found a coupon for a free ticket on the back of a Burger King ad, and I went by myself, one of only 4 people in the theater. But I didn't need a crowd to make the experience memorable. I sat there with my eyes locked on the screen, soaking in everything about Sam and Jake and Farmer Ted, studying the movie the way I'd once studied Goldfinger in Three's Company and PBS's Mystery. Of course, some parts of 16 Candles, like its portrayal of the foreign exchange student Long Duck Dong, haven't exactly aged well. But that wasn't the lens I was watching it through at the time. I was focused on the glories, the hijinks, the unlimited juvenile potential. Were the parties in high school really this epic? Were the women in high school really this beautiful? Was the drama and comedy and the romance of high school really this real? From that moment on, angsty high school films became my religion. Molly Ringwald became my high priestess, and John Hughes became my god. The Breakfast Club, Weird Science, Pretty in Pink, I practically memorized them all. And I didn't stop with John Hughes classics. Fast Times at Ridgemont High, Grease, The Lost Boys, 3 O'Clock High. Sean Penn as a surfer dude? Sign me up. John Travolta in poodle skirts? Hell yeah. And poodle skirts, not in. Well, that would be interesting. Teenage vampires? Why not? In high school, it seemed everything and anything was possible. My summers at John Thomas's grandma's cabin on the lake only added to my obsession. John's older cousins were all in high school, and weren't they just as gorgeous as Molly Ringwald? Or Molly Ringwald's Claire? They swore and smoked and listened to industrial metal bands like Ministry. And wasn't that just as raw and rebellious as Judd Nelson's Bender? They drove a graffiti-covered microbus and wore stylish, funky hats. And wasn't that just as quirky and cool as John Cryer's Ducky? So the unlimited magic of high school was not only possible, it was real. Now, I was finally free to grab some of that magic for myself. My dad was gone, hundreds of miles away in Cleveland, and so were all his rules and discipline. I'd taken a new crazy, just kind of emotional way, sorry. Whew. Sorry about that.
No, don't apologize. Don't
Yeah.
apologize. It's beautiful.
I wasn't expecting that. Let's see. Okay, sorry, I'm trying again. Okay. Now I was finally free to grab some of the magic for myself. Now I'm just laughing because this is ridiculous. Alright, okay, just a couple more. I'm gonna make it. It's just that word miles. It always gets me. So are all rules and discipline. I'd taken a new bedroom for myself down in our finished basement. It was bigger and more room for my posters, Night Ranger, The Cure, and of course a breakdancing Snoopy. The wallpaper was white with an elegant floral print. I had a bathroom of my own, with a big enough window well that I could still sneak out if I stood on my dresser. It had a cave-like vibe that was cozy and mysterious, just like the instrument room where I first chose my violin all those years before. It's crazy.
Take your time.
But most of all, it was mine. It was my own turf, my secret lair, a place where I could find myself in every facet and mode of expression. Since grade school, I had developed this entire toolbox of weird to drop. I'll finish this last paragraph, and then I'll have to stop. To draw upon my imagination, my languages, my characters, my music. But now, as far as everyone at high school was concerned, I was an unknown quantity, a nothing. A nobody. I was also one of 9 black kids in the entire school. So even as a nothing, I stood out. Almost like when I first moved to Montana all those years ago, except for one big difference. Now I had true agency. Now I was in control.
Yeah.
Guys, I love this book so much. I love the writing. It just, there is no facade here. It's raw, honest, beautiful, vulnerable, funny, brilliant, smart. So I just thank you so much for sharing your brilliance and your stories. And it was such a pleasure to get to know you through this book. And I just am like so excited for everyone else to get that opportunity. And I'm kind of like jealous that like you're going to have that opportunity because I wish I could relive it. And this book is amazing, and so are you. So thank you so much. Thank you. Okay. So now we'll open up to Q&A. You can just raise your hand, and then we'll pass a mic to you. Just, we all know, just ask questions that aren't ignorant and like, just be cool, okay? So does anyone have any questions? Yeah, let's go here first. And if you could say your name before your question.
Hi, my name's Hunter. I came from Oklahoma to meet you, but as somebody who seemed to forge a creative path from a young age, and I'm kind of dealing with this myself, but how do you combat the people who don't necessarily believe in you and believe that you can do that for yourself? Because that's like a big thing to live, such a creative life, and I'm sure you've had lots of people like, oh, why aren't you doing this? You could be good at this traditional path, but you've worked very hard to get where you are, and so.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's a hard-headedness that you have to get into, It's like, whatever someone says to you, you just have to, listen to it and go like, it's like, nah, I think you're wrong. In fact, I know you're wrong. It's like, that's not what makes me happy. It's like, I'm not gonna change shit just to make you happy. And I think that's just, there's a hard-headedness that comes with it. I don't know, you gotta really believe in yourself so hardcore that you know that even if you lead yourself astray or whatever that means, like, it's still you that chose it.
And I would just also say super quickly, just to add to that, is a lot of times when people like don't believe in you, it's because they don't believe in themselves. So I'm always like, consider the source, and it's like, you know what I mean? Like if someone doesn't trust themselves, and it's like, you can't expect them to trust you. Like, how old are you?
26.
Oh my God, you're such a baby Hunter. You got this. Just like, stay the course, man. Just stay the fucking course, and you'll be fine. Oh yes, we have a question. If you could, there you go.
Hi,
What's your name?
Tina.
Hi, Tina.
Hi, I actually heard you on, I think it was Justin Long's podcast.
Oh yeah.
And it's so weird, we've kind of had a kismic life. I was born in France, and I traveled around for a while, and then ended up in Helena, Montana.
Whoa.
Yeah, so hearing your story was kind of amazing. And now I'm in Portland, Oregon. I'm in the Pacific Northwest, like you kind of ended up. So I was kind of curious what your story was finding a home, because it was kind of hard for me. I kind of traveled around for a while, so I'd like to know your story.
Oh man, yeah. I mean, home is an interesting thing, isn't it? I feel lucky because like, was it military then did you move?
Oil fields.
Oil fields. Oh yeah, love that one.
It's painful.
Yeah, no, it's beautiful. Black is beautiful. That should be the catchphrase for oil, right? But I mean, I was fortunate enough we stopped, like at 3.5, and then I was there, until I was 18. So I was fortunate to live in the same house for that entire time. So the idea of home to me was a little bit more concrete than some of my other friends who, military brats or whatever, whatever the circumstances that made them move. And so, I have so many friends who are just like, well, where are you from? Well, I did 2 years here, I did 3 years there, I did six months here, then I was in private school, then I was in public school. So, but I would say like the sense of home, at least from my perspective, comes greatly from having duration in a place with my parents and building a relationship to a community. But I also think since then I've been very mobile in my life. I mean, I lived in Seattle for a long time, didn't travel a ton, until maybe like, I don't know, maybe 8 years in, then I started touring, and then that changed. But touring all the time and just being home some of the times definitely makes you reestablish what is home. But home is like wherever I'm paying rent, basically. But even earlier than that, it's where the heart is. No, it's where you feel that the energy of a place, you know. And sometimes home is several places, and they're Voltron together into home, you know. But you're always at the center of it, so I guess ultimately we are all always at home.
Oh my God, I'm feeling all the feels tonight. Goodness. Who else has a question? What's your name?
Hello, my name's Rock. Love your work, Reggie. I've seen you live multiple times. And one thing I think that strikes a lot of people when they see you live is how unique it is, and how a lot of the time people haven't really quite seen something like it. And my question is, was using a loop pedal and improvisational music something that you stumbled upon in your experimentation, something that kind of came from within you, or did you have any inspirations that kind of did looping as well?
Yeah, I mean, it was kind of part necessity and part seeing people use looping technique. When I first started going to Cornish, there was a teacher, Jay Clayton, who unfortunately passed away recently, but she would use this delay pedal, Digitech delay pedal, and it wasn't necessarily a looper, but it delayed long enough that it worked as a looper. And so I would see her build on her voice these vocal scapes, these crazy like amorphous kind of alinear, just harmonic soundscapes with her voice. And that was the first time that I'd seen someone using a looping pedal and just kind of going for it in this abstract way. And then I think I saw someone using a boomerang pedal, which is an early looper as well. And they had like this reverse function on it, whatever. And it was a saxophone player that used it. And then another friend got a jam man. And so I saw my friend Nicole using a jam man. I was like, oh, that's really cool. And then I was in a jazz group called the Wayne Horvitz 4+1 Ensemble. And in that, I was using a Roland Space Echo, an RE101, which is an analog tape delay. Really cool, amazing thing, but it breaks down all the time. It's huge, it's clunky, it's noisy, it's not reliable. And I was going on tour with this band in Europe. And 2 months before we were going on tour, Line 6 came out with the DL4, and it's a delay modeler. And all it does is it mimics any delay that's ever been made. So there's like a book, and it has a chart where you put all the dials. You like put the dial here, this dial here, this dial, and there's a Roland Space Echo. This dial here, here's an Echoplex. Here's this dial, here's a Roland Digitech, whatever. And it emulated digital and analog delays. So I started using that, and then there was a loop function that I didn't use for a long time. And then when I discovered the loop function, I used it as a scratch pad to communicate my ideas to the band. Bands that I would be in. So I'd be like, I heard this groove, I don't know, what about this? And I would put down the beat and then like a bass line, whatever. So then, so it kind of like, it came out of, I'd been exposed to looping, but it also was just like a necessity. I needed something better than what I was using, and it just happened to have this loop function that worked as an idea generator.
Cool. Oh my gosh, so many hands.
One more.
Can we do two?
Okay, two more.
Okay. Let's do the woman who's been standing this whole time with the cap on. Let's.
We'll do one and then two.
Ladies Sparkle Cap.
Hello, I'm Rue. I've been a fan of yours for most of my life, and you are a huge inspiration to me, so thanks for doing that. When I watch you perform on stage, you have such an authenticity and a playfulness and a rawness, and it feels like you're an old friend just jamming out, and I'm wondering how the hell you do that.
I don't know. I think it's like a projection. You kind of like I kind of project people as my friend, you know, like, and it's like kind of a projection, but I think it's also there's a sincere effort to connect in that way. And so I think whenever I go out, I like I've just performed in Austin recently, and I was worried because it's like it's Austin, it's a Joe Rogan's comedy club. I'm like, oh, these people they might not like me or whatever, you know, just assuming. But I took a 26 milligram edible. I had 2 shows one night, and I took it midway through the first one, like, you know, and did a bit with it. I was like, I'm gonna take this pill. What is this? 2.6 milligrams? That's pretty good. And I took it, and then I looked at it again, and it was like, oh, 26 milligrams. Oops, or whatever. I thought it was funny. It's a great bit. But I got really, really high for the next set, so I was doing some really out shit, and I was kind of losing it, like I was cracking up at it on stage, and people were laughing so hard with me, because I was like, this is so stupid, like this is so dumb what I'm doing. I just had an entire like dialogue with like 2 people, I don't know who these 2 people are, why are you doing, you know, like, I like a lot of that, and people were right there with me, and I feel like people want you to, you know, want you to succeed, but they want to like groove with you. They want they want to have a good time, and so we all have a good time together. And I think like I get to know the audience through their energetic response, and it feels like a friend. So it's I approach when I start, I treat everybody like a friend, but then I feel like we actually do become friends throughout the performance. So I think it's that, and I like to I just like that feeling of like we're all fucking doing this. Isn't this fucking awesome? Like that's the vibe that I like to operate from all the time.
Yeah.
Hey guys, what's up?
Hey.
My name's Jizzy Creams. I don't have to remember me. I see you at the Dynasty typewriter in LA all the time.
Oh, okay. Yes, I do.
And
You
I
work
want
for
to
there.
ask you if you can rap the McDonald's song with me.
Yes, I believe I remember that. And I don't believe it. I do remember that.
Cool. Well, I was wondering, as someone who's natural at music, like how did you know where to steer it? Because like I'm a natural at music. Actually, that's my friends kept telling me, oh, you're going to this guy, Reggie Watts. And I was like, who the hell is Reggie Watts? He's way better than that guy.
Yeah.
And I saw you and I was like, oh my god, this guy is a genius because he's a lot like me.
I like it.
But, you know, they're like, how come you're not famous like him and stuff? Because you're like really good like him, you're really funny and stuff. And I'm like, that's a damn good question. So I'm wondering, like, how did you know, like, where to take this all or what? Like, the direction like that?
Yeah. No, I feel that. I mean, I always say like, are you familiar with Toucan Sam? You know how he's like always following his nose? Because he has no choice. But it's like, there it is. It's not really a nose, it's a beak. I think like the thing that I felt like one thing that I think I'm really good at is what I call following the fun, and so I knew that I chose Seattle after graduating high school because it was the closest big city, and I didn't make the auditions to go to New York for acting school, so that was my backup, and so I went to Seattle, and then, but it just happened to be the right time, you know.
I live in Seattle too.
Yeah.
That's where everyone was home.
So you're doing good so far. So yeah, so you do Seattle, do that for a while. You hang out in the grunge scene for a while. You know, electronica comes out. You know, you listen to Massive Attack, Mezzanine. Then you get into comedy. No, I think what it is like there are scenes happening, right? Like all over the place, and there's like these beautiful scenes. LA has a great alt scene happening right now. But it's about going to the places that have the people and the performances and the vibe that you really, really love, and then becoming entrenched in that community. I think some of it is timing, you know, it depends on the cycle that a community is at, but like for me, when I moved to New York in 2003, It was like Eugene Merman, Bobby Tisdale, and you know, everybody that you're watching on television and who has a podcast now. They were all in this one tiny little club. That was the only night that they had every week, and we would meet there as a clubhouse, and we would support each other and laugh, and it was just a really safe place for the weirdest of the weirdest. So I think it's finding places like that, and then and collaborating with people, and just continuing to do what you do, but whatever you're producing, it has to be something that you want to be in the world, because you can't live without it. You know, I think that that's kind of the place, because the success thing is like something that I never really worried about. I didn't really think about that. I was just kind of like, oh, this is cool. Or it's like, oh, you need, or I can't make rent. And then someone's like, well, I got a keyboard gig, you want to do that? I'm like, yeah, okay, I just barely made rent. Okay, now what's next? So I think a lot of it is just following that fun and having that community, but moving forward, don't relax inside of it. Like, definitely keep pushing yourself inside of it.
I'm from LA. I just moved here like 2 weeks ago.
Oh, you did?
Yeah.
Well, yeah, you're fine. You're gonna jumpstart the next wave. Yeah. You're part of the next wave, so it's restarting. This is good.
Well, I guess let's hope I'm right up there with you.
I think you'll be there in 3.6 years.
Well, thanks everyone for coming out tonight. One more round of applause for Reggie.
Oh yeah.
What am I doing? Oh, just hanging out with Reggie Watts and all of his friends. Okay, that's it. Okay.
So you're going to announce. I don't have to say. Can I just shut up?
Yeah.